The Thursday morning of the 24th week. It's actually Friday morning. It's 4:30 in the morning. I just got done. I just got up a little later. Anyway, I wanted to get these last three, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this month. I've got a ton of papers I have to read from the students, my student papers. That's on my mind, I have to tell you. So I wanted to share these things with you because I know that a lot of you who are watching this is for you, it's company. And it is for me, knowing that you really watch these videos. I have to say that. I don't know how long we've been doing them. It started with the pandemic. It's got to be 2 or 3 years worth. Holy cow. And I imagine it's been all of that because, anyway, it began with the pandemic. Well, today, in its own way, it's these readings today from the book of Revelation, and you'll see it the rest of the time, the book of Revelation and the Gospel of Luke, they're apocalyptic. That is, in Revelation, it's the end time. And so you see, I've got to get this straight. You see, how can I put it right? You see the great crisis, I guess you could say that, when the old order is destroyed and a new order emerges. And it's the new order. Well, it depends on how you read this thing. It could be the post-apocalypse, the new heaven and the new earth, for sure. For sure, that's at least what's being said in the book of Revelation. And in John, in St. Luke too, it's all right, okay? In Luke, he speaks about the fall of the temple, the destruction of the temple. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think this was written after it, and it was apocalyptic for the Jewish people. But in the collapse of the temple and you could see the Romans devastated it, okay? In a way, it's the end of one order and the beginning of a new. But the temple destroyed, the new temple is the church, and the new temple is Christ himself. I think that's the message of Luke. And you get in Revelation, the book of Revelation, it's the Babylon. I got to think that's the Roman Empire, okay? I think that's the great monster, okay, is Rome. Because the Christians, by the time the book of Revelation is written, the Christians are being martyred left and right and their brains knocked out, okay? I think he's foreseeing the end of this horrible Babylon, okay, this terrible monster, this moral monster, Rome. I got to think it's Rome. So in one way, it's the end of Judaism as it being the centerpiece, the Jewish temple, excuse me on that, the temple replaced by Christ, the new temple. And I think you could say Rome replaced by Christianity in Revelation through the blood of the Lamb and the blood of the martyrs. I think that's probably right. Okay? So you're looking at religious writings dealing with, I think, the projected collapse of the Roman order, and already, I think, is presented as a projection, the destruction of the temple, but I think the temple was already destroyed. And then the Romans dispersed the people. It took thousands of years to come back, but almost 2,000 years. See? Yeah. And there is no temple. The temple is not, you don't have a priesthood in Judaism. You have a rabbinic tradition, not a priestly tradition. You have no temple. And maybe you'll never have a temple there. Right now, where the site of the temple one is the leading mosque. It's a Muslim Islamic mosque. So, I don't know. What I do think, though, you see, you could focus on the end time, the apocalypse. So, during the 50s, we thought that. We used to think remember this? Maybe that was just New Haven and the Italian kids, okay? I don't know, the Irish. There's a gang of us, okay? Kids of the neighborhood. The end of the world was going to be 1960. Remember I said that yesterday or something? That our Blessed Mother in some revelation said something about 1960. Well, we thought that was the end of the world. Well, it turned out not to be. Maybe the end of our innocence of the 50s. I don't know. But what is, I learned something in a monastery, and it's not to look at the end time, the end of the world, Christ coming in judgment, okay? But rather looking at it as immediate. Every minute is apocalyptic. in the sense that every minute we get to choose whether we are faithful to Christ or not. The end time just reveals it reveals what, in fact, if there is that kind of resurrection at the end of time, and I believe it, okay? When the church rises, okay, out of death, okay? All right? You're going to see it's just, in a sense, the revelation of what has occurred. And what has occurred is our fidelity or our infidelity to Christ. And how does that fidelity or infidelity take place? In the course of our lives, in the course of our vocational lives. What I mean by that is in our marriages, in our religious vocation, whatever it may be, whatever we are called by God to do in our lives, whether it's parental, spousal, priestly, religious, single state, whatever it is, and in our professional lives, what we have called to be. These are apocalyptic moments, okay? What I mean by that are moments in which we choose fidelity or infidelity, not to an abstract ideal or some super law, but maybe the cry of our children. Maybe we're called away from the television set, or me away from something trivial or something when I'm called. I think of that. I think of the failures. I'll give you an example. It's a trivial one, okay? But I'll give it to you because I'll show you an apocalyptic moment where I failed. I was at the grocery store yesterday, Schnucks. I call it Schnuckerinos, okay? I got to Italianize everything just for laughs. Well, there was a woman there pushing her cart, and she was out working her way to her car, and she was an older woman. She's probably younger than I am. No, she was older than me. And she was moving very slowly, okay? Forthrightly and direct. She was in command of her life. But she could have used a little help. You know what? I should have gone over to her and said, Miss, come on, let me do this for you. Come on. But I didn't. That's an apocalyptic moment. It's a moment of grace where I could have done a good thing. Was I commanded to do it? No. Was I invited to do it? Yes. By what? By the event. Not by her. She couldn't give a rat's hiney for me. She was very, very self-sufficient. In her own way, she was. I bet she was a very proud woman. Anybody who does what she was doing has got a lot of self-confidence and pride. But she was also hobbled. And I could have leaned over and said, come on, let me give you a hand. And I didn't. And I regret that. I think of that right now. It's a day later. I think, God mighty, what's the matter with me? You see? It's a grace moment. Sometimes a grace moment is to listen to another person. A word, a gesture. Somebody who wants to walk with you. I have a student right now. She seems to have a need to want to talk with me because she follows me out of class, and what she's talking about is not trivial stuff. She's talking about her own journey. I listened. I said, we'll talk again tomorrow. Why? Because it's an invitational moment of grace for her and for me. Why does she want to talk to me? Because for some reason, providentially, psychologically, whatever kind of medium you want to call, she finds in me someone with whom to speak, to talk, to share and walk. Those are grace moments. I think if I were a parent, do I hear my children? See what I'm saying? Do I hear them? Their needs. Not according to categories, but the event of the moment. And this is especially true in spousal love. More marriages are destroyed by indifference, lack of active fidelity. Active fidelity means you actively take care of your spouse. You actively listen. You actively see, not passively, actively. You look for the good. And you hear the cry. You hear her loneliness or his. Those are apocalyptic moments because it makes a difference. As Barbara Streisand sang once, he touched me and nothing is the same. That's the apocalyptic moment. And Christ comes in the cry of the poor. It could be your wife or your husband, your child. For me, it's a woman pushing a cart. That's the truth. I don't know about the end of time, but I know at a given moment, every moment is end time. Because in every moment, Christ comes. He was in that woman pushing that cart. Not him, yes. It was a moment of grace. I looked the other way. I got to answer for that. In our own way. When I say the Psalm 51 every Friday morning, I say it with great sense of truth. God have mercy on me.